Remember Ricky Vaughn jogging out of that bullpen as the whole stadium lost its mind? Tom Berenger, Bob Uecker, Wesley Snipes, almost none of it was guaranteed. Today we're counting down 15 weird facts you never knew about Major League. Number 15. Think about the moment Jake Taylor and Ricky Vaughn first share a frame together, the battle-tested catcher and his cocky, unpredictable pitcher. That dynamic has a very specific reason for existing. Morgan Creek Productions did not greenlight this movie because they believed in the baseball premise. They greenlit it because they saw an opportunity to reunite Tom Berenger and Charlie Sheen on screen just 2 years after Platoon. Writer and director David S. Ward had been shopping the screenplay for roughly 4 years by that point. Nobody wanted it. Then producer Chris Chesser, a former Orion executive, brought it to James G. Robinson and Joe Roth at the newly formed Morgan Creek. And the pitch that finally worked was not underdog baseball comedy, it was Platoon reunion. Here is the thing, without that war movie framing, this entire film probably dies in development. The cast assembles around 2 leads who were chosen for their box office history, not for any athletic credentials. Every baseball compromise that follows in the production flows directly from that single financing decision made in a studio meeting. Berenger and Sheen had built chemistry in a jungle under Oliver Stone. Ward got to redirect that same energy toward a diamond on a Milwaukee soundstage. It worked completely, but one of those leads was making her very first film appearance, and Ward had to physically intervene to get the performance he needed from her. Number 14. Lynn Wells sits across from Jake Taylor in that library scene, calm and composed, delivering heartbreak with almost no visible effort. It is one of the quietest performances in the film, and it lands harder because of that stillness. What you do not know is that stillness had to be manufactured, because Major League was Rene Russo's feature film debut. Russo had spent years modeling and had a brief appearance in a short-lived ABC television series, but she had no experience in front of a movie camera before this production began. Ward later explained on the Hollywood Gold podcast in 2024 that Russo gestured nervously through every early take, her hands moving constantly, undermining the composed quality the role required. His solution was direct. He tied her hands down for one take to physically break the habit. After that single bound take, she found the stillness. Ward untied her, and the performance held for everything that followed. Think about what that means. Her low-energy, emotionally restrained presence is the anchor that keeps the film from going completely off the rails into pure locker room chaos. And that anchor was engineered through a director's improvised physical solution in the first days of shooting. When you rewatch those scenes, pay attention to where her arms are. The composure is not natural ease. It is restraint that was literally rehearsed under physical constraint. The next casting revelation, though, had nothing to do with auditions at all. Number 13. Harry Doyle sitting in that broadcast booth, slowly pickling himself while delivering baseball commentary with the weary wisdom of a man who has seen everything, is one of the most purely funny performances in any sports film ever made. And Ward had never heard Bob Uecker call a single Milwaukee Brewers game when he cast him. Not one game. Ward cast Uecker entirely off his Miller Lite beer commercials and his ABC sitcom Mr. Belvedere. That was the whole research. The commercials were funny, Uecker had the right energy, and Ward made the call. What happened next is where it gets interesting. Ward later learned that Uecker was Milwaukee's longtime radio voice, a revelation that helped lock Milwaukee County Stadium as the primary filming location. If the broadcaster was locally available between road trips, the stadium became accessible around the Brewers' schedule. A casting instinct based on beer commercials accidentally aligned the announcer, the ballpark, and the location strategy in a single decision. Uecker had only 2 or 3 days of availability per shoot window because of his actual broadcasting obligations, which forced the entire booth unit to work tight and fast. The booth feels genuinely lived in on screen because the man behind that microphone had actually been calling games in that building for years. Turns out Ward stumbled into exactly the right person through completely the wrong method. One co-star, though, had to turn down a Spike Lee film to show up at all. Number 12. Willie Mays Hayes blazing down the first base line, beating out a ball that most players would not even bother running out, is one of the film's defining images. It sets up everything about the character instantly. What that image is built on, though, is a story about a decision Snipes made that changed the trajectory of his career. Before Major League, Snipes was offered a small supporting role in Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. He passed on it and chose this film instead. That decision turned Major League into his mainstream breakout. Here's what makes the audition story even better. Snipes showed up in a flying suit and boxing shoes. He brought no glove and no cleats. He overshot second base so badly that he ran straight into the outfield grass. This was his audition for a character defined by speed and baseball instincts. His training background was LaGuardia Performing Arts, SUNY Purchase Theater, and martial arts. There was no baseball history under any of it. A theater performer and martial artist in dance shoes won a baseball role because the character's swagger mattered more to Ward than his statistics. Snipes told Collider about that audition in 2021 with obvious enjoyment, and you can understand why. He walked into the wrong stadium in the wrong shoes and walked out with the role. Another cast member, though, skipped the audition process entirely and simply talked his way in. Number 11. Roger Dorn olaying ground balls at third base, letting them roll past his glove with cheerful cowardice while maintaining his own sense of dignity, is one of the film's great recurring jokes. It works because Burnson sells Dorn's self-satisfied arrogance completely. Turns out he was playing himself, and the production never found out whether he could actually catch. Ward required every actor auditioning for the film to play catch as part of the process. Every single one of them, except Corbin Burnson. Burnson was in the middle of filming LA Law at the time, declined to come in, and simply told Ward over the phone, "Trust me, I can play." That was the audition. A phone call and a confident assertion. Burnson was contractually locked into his NBC series schedule through a run that lasted from 1986 to 1994, which made him the only principal cast member who never took the diamond tryout. Ward cast him anyway, and the reasoning becomes obvious when you think about it. The self-promoting confidence Burnson displayed on that phone call was indistinguishable from Dorn's personality on screen. Life and casting collapsed into each other. The famous Cleveland Stadium you see Dorn performing in throughout the film is not actually in Cleveland. That is the next reveal, and it is a bigger location swap than most audiences ever suspected. Number 10. Every crowd shot. The bullpen walk. The scoreboard lighting up with the Indians lineup. The late-game surge as the stadium comes alive around the team. Nearly all of it was shot in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, not Cleveland. Almost every interior stadium sequence in Major League was filmed at Milwaukee County Stadium, not at Cleveland Municipal Stadium. A Hollywood Reporter piece, cited in the AFI catalog, noted that Cleveland Municipal had cavernous dimensions and significant lighting limitations. Ward also described Cleveland publicly as a costlier union town. On top of all that, the Cleveland Browns had already painted football yard lines across the outfield grass by the time the production needed access. Ward and producer Chris Chesser scheduled 63 days of shoots around the Milwaukee Brewers road trips, filming at County Stadium when the home team was away. The stadium's tighter, brighter layout made modest crowd sizes read as genuine playoff energy on camera. That was a budget constraint that actually improved the visual product. If you want to catch the location swap on your next rewatch, look for the WTMJ-TV scoreboard graphic during crowd sequences. That is Milwaukee identifying itself in plain sight. The stadium was not even supposed to be in play at this point. The script that eventually filmed here sat completely dead for years before anyone agreed to put it in front of a camera. Number 9. The film has a loose, unhurried rhythm. It moves like a long summer afternoon at the ballpark, exactly the kind of pacing that feels perfectly calibrated in retrospect. What that pacing actually reflects is the era in which the script was written, and the reason every studio in Hollywood initially passed on it. Ward began writing Major League in 1984. He spent roughly 4 years hearing the same rejection. He told Sports Illustrated that the standard answer was something close to, baseball had just started being broadcast on cable. Why would anybody pay to see a movie about it? The cable distribution shift had convinced studio executives that baseball belonged on television, not in theaters. And no amount of pitching moved that opinion. Ward's rescue came through Robert Redford, who hired him to write the Milagro Beanfield War, which released in 1988. That production credit gave Morgan Creek and Mirage Enterprises the confidence to finance the baseball script. An Oscar winner for The Sting in 1973 needed a Robert Redford collaboration to get a sports comedy greenlit. The film's almost television pacing is partly the aesthetic legacy of a project rejected specifically for feeling like a television-era idea. Ward wrote it during the window when studios were convinced audiences would not pay for sports in cinemas. Once it was finally shooting, the real organization the film depicted had very specific opinions about how they were being portrayed. Number 8. Every authentic Cleveland Indians uniform on screen. Chief Wahoo on every cap. The Yankees cast as the designated antagonists, absorbing defeats and humiliations in the film's climax. That level of authenticity required more behind-the-scenes diplomacy than most people realize, and it involved 2 separate negotiations with 2 very different baseball power brokers, who both had to say yes. Indians PR director Bob DiBiasio told MLB.com in 2021 that team president Hank Peters received the screenplay and assigned DiBiasio personally to review the content before any approval. The organization chose to coordinate rather than block, and genuine 1986 through 1988 Cleveland Indians uniforms were used throughout production. The Cleveland Indians, the City of Cleveland, and the Ohio Film Commission all received formal thanks in the end credits. That level of sustained institutional cooperation with a film that explicitly mocks the franchise's losing history is not something studios can simply assume. The harder negotiation, according to Ward, was getting George Steinbrenner to agree to let the Yankees serve as the villains. Ward said it went more smoothly than expected, reportedly because Steinbrenner was himself from the Cleveland area and felt some personal connection to the geography involved. Every authentic logo and uniform on screen represents a paperwork victory. Nothing was borrowed or approximated without a handshake. And the most famous line in the film also required its own kind of negotiation between what was scripted and what an actor invented completely on his feet. All right, we're at the halfway mark and things are about to get even wilder. Before we hit the top 7, I want to hear from you. What's your favorite Major League moment? Drop it in the comments. And if you're enjoying this, smash that like button and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Number 7, juiced a bit outside. Harry Doyle delivering that line as a fastball misses the strike zone by roughly a foot is one of the most quoted moments in the film. It lands because the gap between the observation and the reality is so enormous. And there is a specific reason the joke works. The setup was scripted, but the punchline was made up on the spot. In a January 2025 MLB.com tribute piece published after Uecker's death, Ward clarified exactly how the booth material was created. Just a bit outside was in the screenplay. Uecker's immediate follow-up, tried the corner and missed, was a pure ad-lib delivered in real time. Ward's standing instruction to Uecker was simple. Say whatever comes into your head after the scripted line. The bottle of Jack Daniels, the slow eye rolls, and the leading the league in nose hair crack about Clue Haywood were all improvised. Uecker told Ward the material came from real clubhouse and dugout trash talk he had collected across his professional baseball career. The most quoted sportscaster joke of its generation is a scripted setup wearing 35 years of improvised camouflage. Watch the booth sequences carefully. Ward leaves deliberate breathing room after every scripted Doyle line, holding space for Uecker to add the improvised half that audiences actually retained. Another crucial line came from a man who was not even cast in the role he ended up playing. Number 6. Clue Haywood crushing the ball at the plate, sneering at Jake Taylor with contemptuous ease, is the physical embodiment of everything the Indians have to beat to win. That menace is not manufactured. The man behind it was a genuine professional pitcher who won the American League Cy Young Award. Ward originally signed Pete Vukovich, the 1982 ALC Young winner with the Milwaukee Brewers, to play a relief pitcher. Then Ward actually put eyes on him in person and immediately rethought the decision. Vukovich was 6'4", built with a Fu Manchu mustache that belonged in a different era entirely, and he projected genuine intimidation. Ward moved him to the antagonist slugger role on the spot. Haywood's most memorable trash talk exchange at the plate was not in the script at all. Ward told Vukovich to improvise something a real big leaguer would say in that moment, and he did exactly that. Vukovich also recruited former Milwaukee Brewer Willie Mueller to the production. After the actor originally cast as Yankees, closer Duke Simpson was not performing convincingly. A former pitcher was essentially doing casting work on the side. Ward trusted a real Cy Young winner's baseball instincts over his own lineup card, and the film's most intimidating villain only exists because of that decision. The fastest character in the movie, meanwhile, was not fast at all. Number 5. Willie Mays Hayes burning around the bases is one of the signature images of the film. The character is defined by speed above everything else. His entire narrative function is to be faster than anyone can account for, and Ward admitted to Sports Illustrated that it was almost entirely a camera trick. Ward said in the Sports Illustrated oral history, "Wesley, who plays a speed demon, is not very fast in real life. That's why we always shot him in slow motion. In regular motion, he doesn't look that fast." Hayes' defining athletic trait was built in post-production and through frame rate manipulation, not from any real speed Snipes was bringing to the set. Ward also wrote around Snipes' throwing arm entirely. There are no scenes of Willie Mays Hayes throwing a baseball because the motion could not be sold convincingly on camera. Steve Yeager, the 1981 World Series co-MVP who ran the cast's 6-week athletic boot camp, reportedly doubled for Tom Berenger on certain specific throws throughout the film. Cinematographer Reynaldo Villalobos adjusted frame rates in the Hayes running sequences deliberately. One of the most kinetically exciting performances in 1980s sports comedy was constructed through selective slow motion, strategic scene avoidance, and a professional athlete standing in for the lead when needed. Next time you rewatch, pay attention to Hayes' frame rate during sprinting sequences. In full-speed cuts, he blends into the crowd. One other actor's performance disappeared even more completely. Number 4. The dugout bench jockeys in Major League are sparse. They show up, they ride it on the other team, and they disappear. If the bench feels understated, there is a structural reason for that. A recurring character was removed from every scene he appeared in. Jeremy Piven was cast as an insult-hurling bench jockey with multiple scenes built around him throughout the film. He filmed his role, and then editor Dennis M. Hill and Ward cut him completely from the final print during post-production. Ward acknowledged it directly on the DVD commentary. "I have the claim to fame of cutting a future star." He told Sports Illustrated later that the material simply did not work in the context of the finished film. Piven survived until the editing room and was eliminated when the overall shape of the movie required tightening. The same cutting session that removed Piven also preserved future Scrubs actor Neil Flynn in a small credited role as a longshoreman who delivers the line, "Who are these guys?" It was Flynn's first credited film appearance. Major League's 107-minute runtime is tight for a sports comedy of its era. That tightness cost Piven his entire performance. Ward gutted whole subplot threads to hit that number, and the bench scenes carry the structural absence of a recurring character ghost-edited out of every dugout shot. The reason the entire film exists at all is more personal than any of this, though. Number 3. When Lou Brown's Indians finally win the pennant in the film's climax, it lands with a weight that seems disproportionate to a baseball comedy. That weight has a specific origin. David S. Ward grew up in Cleveland Heights, and he was 8 years old during the 1954 World Series. That was the series where Willie Mays made his famous over-the-shoulder catch off Vic Wertz in Game 1, and the Indians, who had won 111 games during the regular season, were swept in 4 games. Ward watched it happen as a child and carried it. When he wrote the screenplay in 1984, Cleveland had not reached the postseason in 30 years. Ward told MLB.com exactly what the motivation was. "I felt at that point, if the Indians were ever going to win anything during my lifetime, I would have to write a movie where they did. And obviously, given their futility at that time, it had to be a comedy." The script was personal grief disguised as a studio pitch. The Wild Thing jokes, the Jobu rum, the Harry Doyle commentary, all of it sits above a genuine fan's accumulated frustration spanning 3 decades. The emotional sincerity underneath the laughs was never manufactured. The pennant-winning finale is a grown man giving the 8-year-old version of himself the outcome that history refused to deliver. The other enduring myth in the film, though, was chemically assisted and architecturally enhanced to exist at all. Number 2. Ricky Vaughn's fastball looks real because it was real. That velocity, though, came from a combination of pharmaceutical assistance, physical architecture, and a schedule that would have broken most professional pitchers. In Sports Illustrated's July 2011 oral history, Sheen said, "It was the only time I ever did steroids. I did them for like 6 or 8 weeks. You can print this, I don't give a damn. My fastball went from 79 to like 85. The production then moved home plate approximately 10 feet closer to the pitching rubber to make the velocity read even faster on camera. Sheen was filming sessions that began at 4 a.m., throwing roughly 150 pitches per session, and taking cortisone injections between shoots to manage the physical cost of that volume. Sheen had pitched at Santa Monica High School and trained at the Mickey Owen Baseball School before filming began. Tom Berenger said later that 9 of Sheen's first 10 audition pitches caught the corner of the plate. There was genuine ability underneath everything else. The combination of real pitching mechanics, pharmaceutical assistance, and a physically shortened mound produced footage that no conventional casting choice could have replicated. Every Wild Thing close-up represents a shorter distance, a stronger arm than chemistry should have produced, and a 23-year-old's body absorbing the physical cost of making it all look effortless. The film's most surprising secret, though, is not on the mound. It is in the editing room. Number 1. Rachel Phelps fuming in her owner's box as her team wins despite everything she did to prevent it is one of cinema's great villain reactions. The contempt, the frustration, the fury of a plan defeated by the people she was trying to destroy. That ending is the one audiences saw. It was not the ending Ward originally filmed. In the original cut, preserved in the Wild Thing Edition DVD extras, Phelps privately reveals to manager Lou Brown that she personally scouted every player on the roster to construct a winning team. The franchise had been nearly bankrupt following her husband's death. The entire villainy was a calculated motivational ruse to galvanize players who needed a common enemy to unite against. Ward and Chris Chesser took that version to test screenings. The audiences rejected it completely. Ward described the response to mental floss. "I was trying so hard to be clever." But when we tested it, audiences were pissed. They enjoyed hating her. The redemption scene was deleted entirely. All of Phelps's climactic reaction shots were refilmed as contemptuous sneers and undisguised fury. The film's entire moral architecture was rebuilt in post-production around what a preview crowd refused to accept. Margaret Whitten's stage-trained precision made the cold rewrite land exactly as intended. But every Phelps reaction shot in the climactic game is a reshoot, a second performance layered over a secretly heroic original that never played in a single commercial theater. Major League overcame 4 years of studio rejections, a stadium swap forced by lighting costs and football yard lines, and a script that nearly died because of cable television. It was financed through war movie nostalgia, cast through beer commercials and confident phone calls, and built on a childhood heartbreak an Oscar winner carried for 3 decades. The villain's ending was rebuilt because test audiences refused to let her be the hero. A future star was cut from every frame. The fastest character on screen was not fast. The most iconic pitch was shorter than it looked and chemically assisted. If this video surprised you, drop your favorite fact in the comments. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who loves this movie as much as you do. And as always, just a bit outside. We'll see you next time.